welcome back. Hopefully everybody got refreshed and we're back live. And it is my pleasure to introduce our next speaker, Pedro Silva, whose vast experience in front-end, back-end, R, and Shiny development brings a wealth of expertise to our table today. Today, Pedro is sharing his vision for the future of Shiny, highlighting recent advancements and its growing impact, especially within critical industries such as pharmaceuticals and life sciences. Please give a warm virtual welcome to Pedro. Pedro, over to you.
Thank you, Dina. Hi, welcome everyone. It's my pleasure to talk a bit about what I believe could be the future of Shiny, or where Shiny is heading. Just small introduction about me to kind of set the stage as well. I've been a R Shiny developer for almost 6 years now. Before that, I actually worked with a lot of different industries. I've been a web developer for quite some time. I also used to be one of those corporate boys working in the backend. I ended up seeing a lot of different technologies, a lot of different uh, just a lot of different stuff out there when it comes to programming. And 6 years ago, when I switched to Shiny, it kind of changed my perspective quite a bit. And I think the reason for that is that Shiny ends up being extremely unique as a framework. And of course, as someone that could offer something, I also became an open source creator, contributor. I actually have 3 of my own packages on CRUN. A lot of it based on my previous experience. So a lot of the contributions that I felt I could bring to Shiny are also a lot related to my past before Shiny. So I remember when I joined 6 years ago, this R and Shiny world, what Shiny was. So Shiny was just a package, an R package that would allow you to build web applications. I wasn't really sure what this was. I knew that it had some interesting features. It had this reactive programming and graph-based state management. It had a lot of different components when it comes to the UI. And it also allowed you to leverage server-side processing quite a bit. So you didn't really have to care how expensive, how heavy something was, because there's going to be some other machine taking care of that. So it kind of didn't really click for me in the beginning what I was doing. The truth is that in the very beginning, I was kind of learning about Shiny and what kind of components you had, what was the structure of the applications. But as time went on, I kind of started to realize that Shiny was kind of an abstraction layer on top of a lot of different technologies, and it was basically a very simple way for people that didn't have a lot of knowledge building web applications to actually easily build them, which was something that I wasn't used to, but I kind of started working with it and I realized, oh, I can use a lot of my previous knowledge, a lot of the stuff I've been doing for the past 10 years. This is actually something that I can use in conjunction with Shiny to actually empower Shiny even more. So a lot of time has passed since those first 6 years, and I've evolved as a Shiny developer, but Shiny has also changed. And Shiny kind of stopped being just a package. It actually became a lot of different things. It actually became much more than just a package, much more than just a framework. It even extended beyond the realm of R itself. Right now we have Shiny for R as we used to, but we also have Shiny for Python, Shiny Express. We have integrations with Quarto. Now we have WebR that also lets you use WebAssembly with it. And so, but all of these share a lot of the same underlying technologies, a lot of the same underlying ideas that were present in that initial R package. And the truth is that each of them has a bit of its strengths, but they're all very, very interesting in their own way. I think looking at Shiny for R, this is clearly the most robust, clearly the most developed so far. It has been 11 years of development, over 6,000 commits, over 80 contributors. And this part of the contributors themselves, this is also very important because Shiny was built by people with all sorts of different backgrounds, but all with a common goal: simplify this process. And of course, all the other ones are also extensions of this initial idea. Uh, I would even say that one of the versions of Shiny that I'm the most excited about might be Shiny in Quarto, simply because it allows you to go much beyond the simple structure of a Shiny application and actually just reuse a lot of the components, a lot of the things that you end up using. If you haven't tried it out, it's super simple. Just make a Quarto document and try to add a few Shiny components. There's a ton of examples out there of how this can be done, and it really does empower your Quarto websites, your Quarto documents by letting you use what you already know. And using what you already know, I think, is one of the biggest strengths of Shiny. Even if when we move to Shiny for Python, the underlying idea of that reactive graph of how you structure reactivity in your applications is still very similar. So it doesn't really matter that it's a different language. When you're thinking as a software developer how you're going to structure the different components, how you're going to structure your application, a lot of the work that you already had to do, which was figuring this out in R, it is also something that you can do even with Shiny for Python. And the same is true with Shiny for Quarto. You can also reuse a lot of this mentality. Shiny for Python is especially interesting because of Shiny Express. So there's also an even simpler way now of getting started with Shiny, which is really impressive. I always considered Shiny to be extremely simple as a way to get started. I think Shiny Express gives even more simplicity. It allows people that have very little knowledge, even of software development, to just quickly get a dashboard started. Uh, One thing that's also important to talk about when it comes to Shiny for Python is this idea of deployment in the browsers of the users directly. Shiny for Python was built from scratch without the need to actually have a server running. So if we go all the way back to the beginning, uh, one of the things that made Shiny very strong for me from the very beginning was this idea that you could have server-side processing. You could have a lot of processing power behind it. Shiny for Python kind of changes that a bit by allowing you to use the user's machines to their full extent. Well, kind of, as much as they're willing to give you. But it does mean that you can still have some hidden logic that isn't specifically running in the browser. It also means that a lot of that knowledge that came from before, the idea of separating UI and server, will still work because it doesn't really change the way you write the applications. There was a lot of very, very smart people building this so that you don't need to know what goes into making it work this way. And finally, I think the for me the most exciting one, because I'm more of an R person and not a Python person. I know that there's probably going to be a lot of fight in the comments about this, but I do like R as a language a bit more, and I do like. I'm especially super happy that WebR also became a thing. Big shout out to George Stagg, the developer of WebR. So right now you can create an R Shiny application and actually convert it to a version, to an application that will run only in the browser. This kind of changes things completely. The fact that you can do this with R isn't something that was there before. And of course, the engine behind this is WebR. It's super easy to convert. So if you're looking to try this out, there's a package called Shiny Live, which has a very specific comment that you can run, and it will generate a static version of your R Shiny dashboard. The fact that you can do this and then just take those files and put them in a static Amazon S3 bucket or some kind. Actually, that's not true. You cannot use a bucket. You'll need to configure it a tiny bit. But the fact that you can use it without needing to have a lot of resources from the server side, a lot of extra configurations. For me, it's one of the things that I'm the most excited about when it comes to R Shiny. Okay, so if we look at all of these things, there's a bit of a trend here that you can kind of see, which is Shiny has been around for a bit. It has a lot of really proved concepts, really proved uses that already exist. So we know that Shiny is good for data visualization, for building dashboards, even for building reporting tools. We also know that it's kind of spreading out into other languages outside of R, and it's becoming something that kind of transcends R in a bit. But at the same time, at least right now, there's still a few big challenges when it comes to R, and I think that this is a really good thing to focus on specifically for this talk, because you might have noticed that specifically in Shiny for R, there was over 80 people that contributed to the framework. And I think that this is a bit of a trend in R and Shiny that I hope doesn't get lost as we kind of spread out into other languages, which is the community is very important. And there's a chance that one of you might have an idea to solve some of these challenges or to kind of follow up on some of these ideas. So for me, when it comes to challenges, I think the biggest challenges when it comes to R Shiny are scalability, the ability to actually read information in real time. I know that there's a few ways around it, but I still think it's one of the weak points when it comes to Shiny. And finally, because I'm a web developer, I think that accessibility and security are also two very important things to take into consideration, especially now as Shiny is becoming more popular in other industries, other big industries like pharma, for example. We now have a big push from the community to switch from SAS to R, for example. And if this happens, Shiny will also play a big part in this whole conversion of this whole group of people that is coming to a new language and will want to share their results as much as possible. So I hope that all of you will welcome them and show them the R ways, so that they can contribute as well. So what will Shiny actually be tomorrow? Where do I see it going? I think that here, please do take all of this with a bit of a grain of salt. These are some of these are the things I would like to see Shiny do, but also how I feel that Shiny could improve more. How Shiny could become more of a stream, more of a mainstream framework that is used for a lot more things, and maybe even more languages would adopt the model. So for me, of course, like I mentioned, I used to be a web developer. So probably one of the most important things for me is integration with modern web technologies. There's actually some really nice examples of this already being done. I believe that so in the bottom, there's a Shiny contest winner from, I believe, 3 years ago. I don't remember the name of who made the submission, but it was a Shiny app that was connected to a Vue.js app, for example. And then there's also pushes from different packages to make this easier. There's Shiny React by Epsilon. There's also React R. These are packages that aim to make it easier for you to reuse a lot of the web technology things that already exist or that are not integrated with Shiny right now. But reusability really is the word of the game here. We want developers. I believe we are extremely lazy people. If someone already did something, uh, then we'll probably use it. The same is true for different languages. So if we're talking about React, for example, React has hundreds, if not thousands, of packages that exist out there that could easily be imported to Shiny, could be used with Shiny. Shiny React, React R, these are two great engines to do this. It does take a bit of work, so it's not something that is completely automatic. But it is something that if you are interested in trying out, do check these packages. More and more packages coming from here are a really good thing. Um, of course, this comes with a ton of benefits. Shiny by default, just to give you a bit of an idea, Shiny by default uses Bootstrap, now Bootstrap 5. Bootstrap is something that is completely transcended from languages. It's a UI framework that's used very much throughout the internet. Different languages use some kind of variation of it. Shiny made a really nice adaptation of it, but it's not the only one. There's a lot more out there. But the great thing with using one of these UI frameworks that already exists, that's kind of tested in battle, is that there's a lot of additional work that can go into it. To be honest, I didn't check, but I assume that the list of contributors for Bootstrap specifically is massive. Uh, a lot of people contributed from a lot of different areas to make Bootstrap one of the best web UI frameworks. There's a reason why Shiny uses it, but you can imagine that the same is true for a lot of other web technologies. There's a lot of work that was already done. A lot of really smart people that are great at their field contributed to them. So if we're able to reuse them in Shiny, this would be perfect. Um, there's also other technologies that aren't as visual that are also very popular in web development right now that could also be a really good fit for Shiny. Some of the things that came to my mind was WebAssembly. So we do have WebR that leverages WebAssembly as like a hidden layer that will run some magic containers in your browser. But there's a lot of use cases for WebAssembly that we could probably also use specifically with Shiny or specifically with R. Another one that's a bit more UI focused is also web components. Web components has slowly becoming a standard when it comes to component development. It does a really good job at making components a bit more agnostic when it comes to the language that you're using to programming. As Shiny becomes more and more popular in other languages, right now we have R and Python, but who knows what else might come. As Shiny becomes more popular, the need for having components that are reusable without having to be redone from scratch would be an amazing thing. You can imagine. I think Microsoft is doing something with Fluent and Fast, if I remember correctly, which are web component libraries for building components where all of the logic of the component is kind of hidden. All you need to know is that you need to use this specific HTML markup. Shiny lets you use HTML markup. It doesn't really matter which language you're in. You should be able to add a component there. And finally, I'm sure that there's a ton of different frameworks that I forgot or didn't think of that could also be nice integrations. So we saw Vue.js, React. Who knows what the next framework is going to be? Yeah. So when it comes to the other future things for Shiny, I think another point that's really important to talk about is scalability. So uh, we have been having not problems but challenges, specifically with our Shiny when it comes to scaling. Uh, Scaling our Shiny applications it's not complicated. I'm sure that there's a few folks from DevOps that can tell you, that's easy. Just throw money at the problem. More machines, bigger machines. It's always going to work. And it's true. It probably will. But especially with WebR, Shiny Live, Shiny for Python, all of these are magnitude of orders easier to scale than the current version of our Shiny. And I would like to see more of this. I would like to see um, easier ways to scale, cheaper ways to scale. I think that especially with Shiny Live and the ability to create these static R Shiny and Python Shiny applications, we're going to see a lot more software as a service Shiny applications coming out. I actually had this super funny interaction a couple of days ago where I was using one of those PDF converters online a couple of days ago, and I had it open, and it was like a super simple website. I just put the I think an image or a doc file or something, and it spit out a PDF, and I was like, ah, cool. This is exactly what I needed. It was one of the first top results in Google, and I left it open because you always have a lot of open tabs, and it kind of just stays. When I returned to it a couple of hours, minutes after, it actually grayed out like a Shiny application, and that was the first time that I actually found myself using a Shiny application that I had no idea was a Shiny application. Uh, until that moment, because I recognized the gray screen, I had no idea that someone was trying to do some kind of software as a service with a public Shiny application. So I expect to see more of these coming out. I think I think the future will also be much simpler. It will be much cheaper, and if if we do like Shiny, if Shiny really is a robust framework, this will probably happen. Um, yeah, there's also been a really big push for other kinds of scalability techniques. So I know I'm a bit of a fanboy when it comes to WebR and WebAssembly and running things in the browser instead of in the server. But there's also been a lot of pushes for multi-threading when it comes to Shiny applications or additional caching. This is also a great way to go. Just because you can make a Shiny application that runs 100% in the browser doesn't mean that this is the use case that you're looking for. It just means that it's probably works for you, but it might not work for every case. So having these server-side performance improvements is also something that can truly contribute to easier scaling of Shiny applications. The same with the infrastructure itself, load balancing, auto scaling. These are things that I know Epsilon also does, for example, but I don't think that there is an holy Bible when it comes to scaling Shiny applications. And this is something that I would like to see more, better best practices, um, more easier proven in battle concepts that Shiny can scale, and that here's how you can do it, here's the whole recipe. Of course, it's hard not to talk about AI and ML as well. Specifically for ML, I think that there's some really nice integrations here that we could have with machine learning models. I think Shiny is the perfect platform to actually give users a nice UI, a nice way of interacting with some of these models. Simplifying this interaction could be really beneficial. And even using Shiny applications to kind of train models could be an interesting one. Using Shiny applications for maybe collecting data, for actually improving the process of training models could be also quite interesting. Unfortunately, I don't think that there's a very simple framework for this, but I wouldn't be surprised if in the coming years we'll also see more of this, more frameworks coming out that specialize in very specific things, but are just a very fine-tuned version of Shiny, of any of the Shiny versions that we have right now. Of course, we also need to talk about AI for development. I think that this is, if there's a defining topic for the decade, it's probably going to be AI. It's going to be ChatGPT. It's going to be Copilot. It's going to be all the tools that will help you develop faster. Those chat buddies that can also give you some help in very specific topics. I expect more and more of these to also show up for Shiny. Right now, you can already use, I believe, ChatGPT and Copilot directly in RStudio, but they're still evolving, and I think a lot of these helping tools, specifically for developers, specifically for Shiny, will come. They will keep improving. I'm personally not the biggest fan of them right now because I think that they are still very green, that they still need a lot of work. But it's definitely coming. It's just a question of when is it coming. Uh, Yes, another one from web technologies that I think Shiny could really benefit from, accessibility and internationalization for apps. So if Shiny apps will become more mainstream, these are two super important topics when it comes to web development. I know that there's already some tools out there that help. Epsilon has Shiny I18N, which is specifically for internationalization. There's a few more out there, but one thing that is also worth talking about and working about is localization. Shiny apps that have uh, different details, uh, different images, different icons, different layouts, depending on localization. This is something that I haven't seen out there yet. Uh, there should be some push to try to work on this. Um, we'll see how it goes. I think that it will be a natural process of Shiny becoming more mainstream. I think people like me that have a big background in web development could probably also help a lot here because this was something that I had to do for a very long time, taking care of all of these things. I hope that Shiny will also get a few more of these tools. Uh, Another trend that I believe will come, it's already coming. Posit has done a really great job when it comes to collaboration in data science teams. Uh, Shiny for Shiny in Quarto plays a really great plays a really great role here. The idea that a Shiny application should be multi-language. You should be able to uh, work with whoever is part of your team, even if you don't speak the same language. I think that this will be more and more of a push. I think Quarto kind of fits the gap very well right now, but Quarto is probably just a piece of the puzzle here. I think that I wouldn't be surprised if in a year, 2 years, 5 years, we would actually have a proper version of Shiny where language matters even less. Uh, is it going to be an extension of Quarto? Maybe Quarto will simply evolve to kind of be the glue between all these different Shiny engines and allow you to create really complex uh, applications with multiple languages, multiple programming languages, with different people that are very good at doing one specific thing. One thing that I kind of miss was the idea of real-time collaboration in Shiny apps. I remember about, I don't know, 10 years ago, Mozilla actually had this project that is currently kind of abandoned, which was called Together.js. It was actually a JavaScript library that would allow multiple users to work on the same website in different browsers. I think that this would be a really cool fit for Shiny. For development itself, this kind of exists already. So you can use VS Code with the right plugin and kind of share the work. Of course, version control is also a route that you can take here, which is not real time, but at the same time, it still lets you collaborate very easily with other people. I hope that we'll see more of these collaborative features. Not sure exactly how they will look like, but I'm sure that they're coming. Yeah, and this one is a bit of maybe a pipe dream that I have. I actually would really like to see Shiny more when it comes to education. I know that R is a bit. Uh, some places already use R quite a bit. I actually learned Lisp during my studies, which I actually didn't know exactly where I will ever use it until I moved to R and actually saw, oh, this actually reminds me quite a bit of that weird language that I was working with. Of course, in my version of Lisp, there was no pipes, so we ended up with 20, 20 parentheses to close something. But I think that Shiny can really play a big role in specifically in data science education. So not from the development side, but if you are learning data science, uh, Shiny can really easily get you to do something. The R language is super easy to kind of pick on and start working. If you put Shiny on top of that as a way to quickly visualize things that you're working on, uh, I think that humans are very visual creatures. It was actually one of the reasons why I switched to web development from backend. It was because I like to see things move. For education, I don't think that there's a better thing that you can do than to actually show people what they're doing. In my studies, we had a project where you had to program the controller for a different set of trucks that would control some trains and some traffic lights. I remember that the project was kind of fun and everything, but the thing that actually tipped it and made it one of my favorite projects of all times was that by the end of the semester, the the teachers actually build a small train track with small trains and small traffic lights where you just plug in your code, and if something went wrong, the trains would just crash. And this was one of the highlights that kind of turned a kind of a boring project into something that I was really invested in because I really wanted it to go right or wrong. If you depending on if the crashes were very big or not. Yeah, and another thing is community building. So I think R has always lived a lot from its community. I think it still does, and Shiny is no exception. A lot of the really great things when it comes to Shiny are community driven. Documentation, packages, a lot of tutorials, or a lot of workshops. There's ton of a ton of things that only exist in Shiny and that kind of took Shiny to the next step only because there was so many people working on it, only because there was so many people involved. This conference is the perfect example of that. Everyone here is kind of pushing it a tiny bit more, pushing the border a tiny bit more when it comes to the Shiny knowledge. And uh, their work will probably be used or adapted by 100 people, which will then use and adapt by 1,000 more people. And this is how some of the best tools in Shiny got made, got iterated, and actually got to where they are today. Of course, we're going to see more of that moving forward. Uh, in an ideal scenario, we would probably even have people working with universities. Maybe you would get R and Shiny integrated in some of the classes that go there. Even certification programs. I don't think that there are a few, but it would probably be a really interesting thing to have nice certification programs for validating skills when it comes to Shiny. No matter if it's for Python, for R, maybe even for different ones, but having these would give a bit more push for people to actually use Shiny even more. Another thing that I'm hoping to start to see more is cross-platform development. So websites and web applications always had this the the actual device that you use was never really a problem. When you open a website in your desktop or in your tablet or in your phone, you kind of know what to expect. Uh, Shiny applications do suffer a bit from this. Shiny applications have been, at least historically, from what I've seen, haven't been the most responsive websites to use. I'm hoping that we'll see more of this. This is also where my personal open source has been working on a bit. Try to bring some of the technologies that are core to web development that everyone kind of expects, and make sure that Shiny also has them. And here I'm not talking about just automatically changing the layouts, but actually giving you the most cutting edge tools to actually create the applications with different aspect ratios, with different screen sizes in mind, so that you would have full control over this. And second, there's also it is very popular. I'm sure a lot of you have used Slack or Discord. These are actually web applications that have been wrapped to work on the desktop. I believe that especially now with Shiny Live and with WebAssembly becoming a bit more streamlined, a bit more robust, we'll probably start seeing these more and more for Shiny specific applications. Imagine just installing a Shiny application on your phone from the Google App Store, or having a desktop version of an application that you use all the time and you just installed it. The same for mobile apps. So Electron is very popular for desktop apps. Cordova was, I believe it still is. I haven't worked in mobile apps for a bit, but it also is it also is a very standard way of building mobile applications. Something like that for Shiny would probably be quite interesting. There's also some other things out there. So a big shout out to me for Shiny PWA, which is just a very simple standalone application that would let you install Shiny applications into the desktop. Although it's a bit cheaty because it doesn't really give you a local application. It just kind of makes a really nice shortcut either on your phone or on your desktop. But still, the usability of it is much closer to a native application than nothing. And then I also know that Shiny Mobile has been working very hard on their next version, especially when it comes to responsive design and being more targeted for mobile applications. Really big shout out for them for working a bit more on this framework. Okay, so there's a few other things that are not as easy. I think security is also something that we'll probably need to work on a bit when it comes to Shiny. I think that especially Posit has done really well with Connect when it comes to adding a lot of these authentications and authorizations. But I would like to see more of it. I would like to see it easier and much just more accessible, more easy to use. And the same with data protection. I think that Shiny, especially when you have a server-side communication, that communication channel isn't great. I would really like to see some push to have some packages that are specifically targeted at security and actually making your Shiny applications even more robust. Okay, so I've been talking for quite a bit, and there's a lot of really nice ideas of this, but how do we actually get there? The truth is, there's a lot of stuff to digest here, and sure, the title of this talk is the next 10 years, so we do have some time. So don't worry, we'll still have some time to get there. But the only way we'll actually been there is if we work as a group, if we work as a community. If you're, I think R has always been very open source focused. Cron is over 20 something thousand packages already there. There's a lot of these that are specific for Shiny, and I would like to see even more of them moving forward. I would like to see people from different backgrounds bring in the thing that they were very good at before they even started working with Shiny, and see if it's a good fit for Shiny. Um, Remember that all Shiny developers, no one starts as a Shiny developer. There's very little chance that your first that you grew up thinking I'm going to be a Shiny developer when I grew up. But you still ended up here. You still ended up using Shiny. But your journey to get here gave you a lot of knowledge about different things. So remember that you might be able to help more than you think. This was a big shock for me personally when I realized a lot of the stuff that I was using in traditional web development weren't that easy or that accessible in Shiny. And so there's always something that you can bring. So think a bit in and see if there's something that you could also contribute. And in general, I think with more and more people joining, so the whole push of pharma from SaaS to R, other types of companies, businesses are also slowly looking more into Shiny. I think making sure that we keep this culture of contribution, of open source code, documentation, supporting each other, even if you're a big company or if you're representing a big company, making sure that the tools that you do, or at least part of it, is open source, so that you can collect more and more feedback from the community itself and from the people that will actually benefit from those tools. I think that this is a really good way to go. It's a really good approach. Uh, Finally, there's always I gave an example in one of those first slides of one winner from a Shiny contest. We need more of these. We need more. It doesn't matter if there's an actual big prize behind it, but I think this kind of hackathons and just these kinds of challenges are a really good way. I know that there's there's uh, there's a few of them out there. Participate in more of them. Maybe organize if you have the chance. It could even be related to coding itself. Maybe you have a package that you open source and you would like to add more features to it, or you have too much of a backlog. Maybe make a hackathon out of it and get the community to contribute even more. And finally, more partnerships. I think that this is also a really good way of growing the community, making sure that there's actual involvement from the big players would be great. I also mentioned academia before. I think new people that are coming in, making sure that they are familiar with Shiny and with R is the way to actually make sure that it survives a bit more. Yeah, and just sustainability and open source funding. Of course, if you don't manage to contribute to open source, think about contributing to the people that contribute to open source. There's a lot of really nice folks that spend a lot of time working on their open source. Maybe you can support one of them if you don't have the means to contribute to open source yourself. Uh, yeah, that's just a bit of a call to action that open source will move on, it will continue, but if you can support it, it will be even better. Yeah, and that's all I have for you today. I think we have 1 or 2 minutes to go, but thank you so much for having me.
Mhm. Yeah, we do. We do have a few minutes spared. Thank you, Pedro, because we've got a bunch of questions. And before we delve in, thank you for the insightful presentation and for bringing the community together in the comments. The R squad has spoken. No diversion to Python detected. You can sleep well tonight. Also, I'd like to sum it up, like the whole presentation, with a comment from Mohammed Uzar that R and Shiny should be taught in universities to all disciplines. I think that was the mood in the comments to give you, Pedro, the feeling of what was going on in the background. So we have a question from Salome Whitware. Is Quarto also useful outside of Shiny, just as kind of a replacement for R Markdown? There was an answer yes, but maybe you'd like to elaborate on that a bit.
Yeah, 100%. So yes, even if you're not using Shiny, even if you're building just a static report, if you're building a static website, actually, if you're building a presentation, because it also supports outputting to a presentation, to just build you a nice PowerPoint presentation. All of these are features that Quarto can give you. Shiny is just one of the many things that it can do. So yeah, you can think of it as Markdown on steroids that allows you to actually do quite a bit.
Exactly so. Thank you. There were a few comments about WebR, and I thank Eric Nance for reminding everybody that we have George Stagg as a keynote speaker tomorrow in the life sciences track, who will address the topic of WebR in more detail. So, two questions from Adam and Sunday. Can Shiny apps run without a server using WebR? And can you deploy our Shiny dashboards on Surge SH using WebR?
So I'm not entirely sure about search simply because I don't remember exactly what it is, but I would assume yes. So the idea of WebR and more specifically, the idea of Shiny Live is that you should be able to create a version of your application that does not require a server to run. So there's two different pieces of technology here. So the first one is WebR itself. So WebR is kind of it's a WebAssembly engine. You can think of it as a container that's hidden somewhere in your browser and it's running R. And you can communicate with it using JavaScript and ask it R things, and it will run the R code and will return to you something that is more digestible by the browser. If you're familiar with PyScript, this is a very similar thing. So the idea is that you can have R running in your browser. Because Shiny is an R package, you would assume that, of course, you can have Shiny running there and it will work just fine. Unfortunately, it's not that easy, but the great folks that uh, gave us Shiny Live for Python also gave us Shiny Live for R, which means that you can run them. So you can install the R package Shiny Live. there's a nice command that you run, and it will create a static version of that application. With that, as long as you have an HTTP server running, you will be able to run it. So I assume that Surge does the same. Netlify works. You can run it locally using just any kind of HTTP server command. You can even run it in a container if you really want, but probably you don't, because the idea of these is that your users will download these files and then they will have it, and they will just run them locally.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Pedro. I did have one more, I think. No rookie question there. But we have to move on and I have to wrap it up here. So guys, those questions will not be left unattended. Maybe Pedro could resume as an audience participant and respond, or we'll catch you later in the comments. So thank you, Pedro, once again. And we'll be moving on to our next speaker.
Sure. Thank you for having me, and enjoy the rest of the talks.
Thank you.